This is the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, John Halpin.
Hey everybody, it's John Halpin. This is the Friday, September 22nd edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Fanball. Derek VanRiper is with me like every Friday afternoon. We're going to get you all ready with all the last minute, let's say, things. Not last minute Sunday, but end of the week, injury reports, stuff like that for week 3. But first, we all knew that Niners-Rams would go over 79.5, right, Derek?
Yeah, we had Dalton Del Don on the XM show yesterday, and he was just really lamenting that was going to be the only game he was planning on going to as a Niners fan. I think he lives kind of far away from the stadium because everybody does. So he was upset about the traffic, low-scoring expectations, and actually turned out to be what I think is being referred to as the best game of 2017 so far.
Right. I mean, it might wind up being the best game of 2017, period. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibility.
Are you going to be disappointed, though, if last night's game is the best one we see all season?
I'm good with that. It was so unexpectedly fun that I turned it on, and I'm going, I guess I got to watch this. And I see it's 17-7. I go, oh, that's interesting. So now the Rams are going to kill them. Great. And then I couldn't take my eyes off it. It was so great. I had such a great time watching it with the fumble on the kickoff return and the onside kick and Gurley running well and Jared Goff looking like a real live quarterback. Wow, that was just I'm fine with that. That was one of those games where I like them when they come out of nowhere like that. If the best game of the year was something like Packers Patriots, it would be fun, but you geared up for it and that's fine. Last night it was one of those you never knew it was going to happen and it did.
Yeah, I mean, minimal expectations for me. Now, I am a Brewers fan, and they have a big series that started yesterday against the Cubs, so my attention was locked in on that, and I'm kind of tracking Twitter, and I'm seeing everybody getting excited about Rams-Niners. It's like, really? Oh, yeah, I guess there is a lot to get excited about here. I mean, Todd Gurley, 3 TDs, 149 yards from scrimmage. Robert Woods and Sammy Watkins over 100 yards, and Watkins scored twice, unfortunately, in the concussion protocol right now.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, the Rams on 2 occasions now have had pretty nice explosions offensively. And when you look at the way the targets were distributed yesterday in the passing game, Watkins getting up a little higher, getting up to 7, is a step in the right direction. I mean, I think with Goff, there is a lingering concern with me that he will not always throw into tough matchups. When he's facing a premier corner on Watkins, those could be the games where Goff just volume-wise kind of looks elsewhere. Maybe that's why we saw a little less Cooper Kupp last night, because we saw more Sammy Watkins.
All right, but that's fine. I mean, if that winds up being your Jared Goff complaint, that's way better than we thought a month ago.
Oh, yeah. Much, much better.
So, yeah, this was Garcon had a big night, 7 for 142. Carlos Hyde ran pretty well. That was just, again, I am good if that's my favorite game of 2017.
Okay. I mean, I think I'd be disappointed more in the sense of, 1, I didn't watch it live because I was watching the Brewers game.
Right.
And 2, that it already would have happened in week 3. I still want that as something to look forward to. It's more that I had something else going on and it's passed than anything else. If that ends up being the best game of the year, that's a great game.
All right, enough Niners-Rams. Enough about the juggernauts that we saw in that game. Todd Gurley, 6 touchdowns for Todd Gurley already, by the way. If you bought Todd Gurley in, let's say, it was late second, right?
Yeah,
most people. Yeah, I was gonna say if you wound up buying him somehow in round 3, I think you might have a win already. We're pretty close.
Yeah, the one spot where I thought about taking him a little earlier was in the NFFC. Mike Doria, who edits the football notes and basically is the manager of the day-to-day coverage here, shares that team with me. We were sitting there and we're like, all right, get the last pick, the 14th pick, so we go twice. We liked Brandon Cooks a lot, and so far that's been regrettable because we got him as one of the 2 picks, and Zeke fell. And that was the weekend when we still didn't know what exactly was going to happen with Zeke.
Right. If
we'd gone Zeke Gurley,
wow,
that would have changed a lot about how our teams put together. Now, we ended up getting C.J. Anderson in the 4th, and there's some other things that have gone pretty well overall. So that team's not bad, but man, the people that passed on Todd Gurley in favor of Jordan Howard, it's like now 3 weeks in, have to just be kicking themselves. And I would have done that. Like I would probably looked at Howard over Gurley at certain points in draft season and been like, yeah, this makes sense. He did it behind a bad line last year. And I wasn't buying the Tariq Cohen narrative during the preseason really at all. And Howard's got the shoulder injury now. The Bears look terrible. It's almost like Gurley's year 2 is what Jordan Howard's year 2 could look like. And that's kind of scary.
Yep, it is kind of scary. All right, everybody. We thank Fanball for sponsoring the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast all week again. Thank you very much, Fanball. Check them out, fanball.com. Twitter, let's see. Derek's at Derek VanRiper. I'm at Halpin37. You've got the news feed at RotoWire NFL, where you'll see if anything happens, comes across the newswire, you'll see it at RotoWire NFL on Twitter, or you can check us out at RotoWire, where you'll see more, let's say, human commentary. Derek, I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah, human commentary. That's appropriate.
Nothing against the robots at RotoWire NFL, but it's not robots. You know what I mean, folks. It's lots of news. It's actually very important to follow. Also, you can check us out on Facebook. All right. So we're going to go through some Friday afternoon news, talk about some things we like, talk about some injury reports, things like that. So the latest out of Tennessee, DeMarco Murray limited on Friday. The ESPN Titans beat writer said that basically whether Murray plays or not, you will see a, quote, significant workload for Derrick Henry. So if Murray's out, you're locked and loaded with Derrick Henry. But if Murray plays and you're a Henry owner, you're starting him, but how confident are you?
You know, I'm kind of lukewarm on it this week. I think the Titans' offensive line is good enough to match up against most fronts. I think Seattle's a good run defense, maybe even a very good run defense, even though Carlos Hyde really shredded them quite a bit in week 2. That was an ugly game between the Niners and Seahawks, by the way. I think we talked about that a little bit on Monday. So I'm looking at it, and Henry, even if Murray plays, Henry is kind of like a must play, at least as a flex, I think, and in most circumstances. I mean, if you're in like a 10-team league, you're loaded at running back, maybe you've got a case there where you don't have to play him. But I would kind of take that report actually at face value in this case, because if you're the Titans, what incentive do you have to run DeMarco Murray into the ground in week 3 against a really physical Seattle defense when you have a 6'3" bruising back like Henry who can pretty capably handle the extra workload for a week or possibly 2?
All right. So actually, who do you prefer? Let's say this is a hard one because most people weren't able to get Henry as a handcuff for Murray, right? On draft day, because Henry was going too early for that. But all right, what I'm getting at here, let's say you did. Who would you play? If Murray's active, who would you play?
I'd play Henry this week. I mean, I just think it might have something to do with the depth that the Titans have at running back too, where they could have Murray available, they could use him if they need him, and then just not really use him that much and rely heavily on Henry. I just think that totally makes sense based on the way that team's built.
All right. Vikings, Sam Bradford out again. How much are you dinging Diggs and Thielen?
A lot. I mean, Tampa Bay ordinarily wouldn't be a matchup that you're really fearful of, but Case Keenum, as we saw last week, and it was on the road in Pittsburgh, this is at least at home, Case Keenum's not going to bring a whole lot to the table. I think with Diggs and Thielen, it's probably as much as you would downgrade a guy like T.Y. Hilton with Jacoby Brissett throwing him passes, where Diggs is like a firm wide receiver 2. Thielen's probably not that far behind him. You know, Bradford's healthy right now. Now it's more like flex, low-end wide receiver 3. Look carefully at those next best options on your roster because they may ultimately be better plays than Diggs and Thielen, which is unfortunate. I like both of those players a lot. And I think it hurts Dalvin Cook a little bit too. I know some of the DFS sites still have him priced pretty low. It just hurts him because the 3-and-out potential is through the roof with Case Keenum.
Yeah, it was too bad because Cook wasn't bad last week, but you're right. That limits him. It's not that he limits him, and it's not on every play. It's that, you know, the volume gets hurt by a guy like Keenum. You're right. Last week, by the way, Diggs 2 for 27 on 6 targets. Thielen 5 for 44 on 6 targets when Keenum played. So I think Bucs are going to win this game, right?
Yeah, I think the Bucs win. I don't know if they would like blow them out or anything like that, but I could see the Bucs winning by 6 or 7.
Yep. Okay. Patriots looks like Burkhead's most likely on all these. Burkhead out, Gronk in, Amendola back in. And week 1, Danny Amendola was an interesting player, right? He was a type of guy who, if you're going to get it again, and he was 6 for 100, by the way, if you're going to get that Danny Amendola again, you want to start him. If he's active in PPR, is he a guy you want to start?
Yeah, I think in like a full PPR scenario, at least 12 teams, I'm at least considering it. I'm wondering if the snap count will go up from where it was in week 1. He only played 32 snaps, but he caught 6 of 7 targets for 100 yards in that game. And had 3 catches that went for 20 or more. Like, that's pretty impressive. I like him quite a bit as an underneath guy, though. I mean, I think with Houston having a good pass rush, Brady's going to kind of emphasize getting rid of the ball quickly, so it's going to be more short and intermediate throws. So I could see a guy like Amendola thriving in this matchup, and probably James White as well for the Patriots.
All right, so does it surprise you that the Patriots have the highest projected point total on the board?
No, I mean, they're back at home. Brady hasn't lost back-to-back home games since 2006. The Houston defense is a little banged up, I think, at corner. They always find a way to kind of make the layup, if you will. And they're 2 touchdown favorites. I mean, like, that's where it comes from. I think I guess I could see them underperforming the implied total if Houston just completely lays an egg offensively, but plays a better game than some people expect defensively. So instead of putting up the 20, 28, 28, or total is, maybe they check in at like 23 or 24, but with that personnel for the Patriots, it's not that much of a disappointment.
All right, let me ask you another related question. With Deshaun Watson playing, and Deshaun Watson looks, we're talking about real life Deshaun Watson now, not fantasy Deshaun Watson. What defense is better than the Patriots this week? I've got them ranked second.
You probably have the Dolphins going up against the Jets ranked ahead of them.
I have the Ravens, actually.
Okay, I have the Ravens against Bortles in London. Yeah, I mean, jet lag, just Bortles being Bortles. Ravens defense looking good. Over-under in that game is like 39.5, too. Right. It's a really low total. Actually, Bucks-Vikings is down at 39.5. How high do you have the Bucks defense?
I have the Bucks defense at number... Actually, I haven't moved it yet because of the Bradford thing. But I'm going to have the Bucks defense... You know what? I'm going to have it number 10, which is not too high.
Yeah, it's not crazy.
I've got some other ones I like a lot.
Well,
the Bills, actually,
the Broncos. The Broncos aren't like a streaming defense because somebody just has them and plays them every week. But I'm worried about the Bills' offense this week. They may sputter in a really big way, and I don't think it's because of what Denver did to Dallas last week. I think it's because the Bills offensively. I mean, you saw them play against the Panthers last week. They didn't even really look that good against the Jets, did they? I mean, when you account for how bad the Jets actually are,
they really didn't. I just wonder if they're gonna. I have this image in my head of this game going the Bills' way, of the crowd and the defense and all that getting them a win, just because I am not such a believer in the Broncos. Like I have certainly underestimated Trevor Siemian, but I don't think. I mean, the Broncos are not a. I don't think they're a number 1 seed kind of team. So
no, I don't think they are either.
This is the kind of game they could lose for me.
I mean, I could see them losing road games to teams that end up with losing records this year. I don't think they're going to lose this one. I was actually surprised they weren't favored by a little more in being the road team. Certainly as a factor. I would have thought like 4.5 was the line. It's actually 3.
Right.
So, I like the Broncos maybe a little more than you do.
Okay. Let's see. Other injury stuff. But one more thing about back to the Pats and Amendola. So anyone who had any thoughts about Philip Dorsett needs to get him out of their head now that Amendola's back. I know they're different, and I know Amendola's a slot guy, but only so many balls to go around. The Hogan stuff. What do you do with Hogan this week? Like, how much do you? He seems flexy's the easy thing to say, and I say it because I have him 31st at wide receiver, which sort of is the definition of flexy.
Yeah, I think if Houston were healthier in the secondary, he might be a guy I'd have on the bench. I think he's like a firm wide receiver 3 consideration, so kind of in the 30 to 40 range among receivers. Yeah. So even like in a 10-team league where you start 3, I think Hogan might be good enough in this matchup, despite Amendola's return, to give you a nice floor again this week.
All right. Everybody, we got to talk about daily fantasy sports. We're going to talk about it a lot today. And sometimes you like playing, but you don't win, and not winning is no fun, especially when you're not winning against people who just spend a lot more time on daily fantasy. There's sharks in every daily fantasy pool, and sometimes they get you. But playing daily fantasy is supposed to be fun, and we're going to tell you about a whole new approach to daily fantasy sports, the Fanball number at fanball.com. Here's the Fanball difference. Your Fanball number identifies your skill level, and it ensures that you play in contests against players at your skill level. If your Fanball number is, let's say, 35, you're not going to be playing against experts rated in the 80s and 90s. They have their own contests. At fanball.com, every player has a Fanball number, and every contest has a Fanball number, so you can find a contest rated around that 35, knowing that it'll have players just like you. They've leveled the playing field with the Fanball number at fanball.com. Have more fun and a better chance to win. That's fanball.com. You're gonna be up again there this week, Derek? You won there last week, right? I
did well in the I think it was the Chase to Charge, is what they called it, or Chase Charge after Paul Charchian. And cashed in that free roll, and I'm going to be playing over there a little bit again this week. So I'm up to a 49 on my Fanball number. I think that's decent, but not great. So, it's new for me. So we'll see how week 3 treats me.
All right. We did this last week. Players you're kind of curious to see. Not necessarily, the Le'Veon Bells of the world. Actually, Le'Veon Bell is an interesting one, because he's had 2 games that his owners are not happy with, and they're on the edge of their seat wondering when the heck the big breakout's going to happen. So maybe he is that guy.
Yeah, I mean, I like Bell as kind of an expensive option for week 3, though, because when the Steelers are away, we know Ben Roethlisberger's got bad splits. I still think they're going to be able to do whatever they want against the Bears for the most part. The Bears showed up in week 1, didn't look quite as good in week 2, of course, against the Bucs. That was a bit of a surprise. I think it's going to be a lot of Le'Veon Bell. We saw the volume pick up in week 2. That bodes well. So, I mean, like on Fanball, he's 8,900. He's very expensive, but I have no problem if you're building 2 or 3 lineups to make sure that Bell is your kind of key piece in at least one of them.
All right. Guy I'm kind of curious to see is Marcus Mariota. I think this is what last week, I think they made a nice statement. And Eden and I talked about this on Monday, that I thought that Jacksonville game was kind of tough for them. And they were 0-1, and they could have been staring at, a disastrous start to a season that a lot of people thought was going to be really good. And they just went out and they just, they took care of business, and Jacksonville was nice. I think they're going to take care of business again. I'm really curious to see if he can get that offense to really move the ball against a good defense like Seattle's at home.
Yeah, that's going to be a good test for him. There have been some tough draws for Mariota so far, so he'd be pretty high on my list of kind of like, hey, prove it type guys at this point. Derrick Henry against that Seattle defense. I mean, we talked about him before. I think he's pretty high on my list of what's going to happen this week. I want to watch and see how he looks, even if Murray's out there. Is Henry going to overtake him? That's kind of an interesting storyline. They could flip sides of the timeshare. Like if by the end of the season, if Derrick Henry is getting 60 to 65% of the touches and Murray is the second fiddle getting 35 or 40, that wouldn't really be the most surprising thing, would it?
No, because if Henry plays well, then no. It would surprise me a little. If Murray's healthy, that would surprise me. Maybe not as much. Maybe not as much as, I would be, blown away, but I would be kind of surprised. Just because I think Murray's really good. But that's a nice problem to have.
He's 29. Like he's a little older than people realize.
He is. He was really good last year, though. I don't know. I know what you're saying. Henry looks like he's good. And it's funny because after last year, I don't know that we were all convinced. I know I wasn't. If we were convinced that he could be that kind of guy. That I thought he was a bruiser, but I wasn't sure if he was good enough to be the lead back. And I think he's the first 2 games of this year, I feel like he's a little better than maybe I gave him credit for.
Yeah, that's a reasonable take. Chris Carson, on the other side of that same game. Like, what's the volume going to look like? How is he going to do against the Tennessee defense behind that porous Seattle offensive line? I think Carson's kind of a fascinating player this week. Christian McCaffrey's been on my watch list 3 weeks running. I think this is an amazing spot for him against the Saints. I think with Greg Olsen being out, McCaffrey's going to help pick up that slack. I like the snap volume advantage he's had over Jonathan Stewart to this point anyway. I think people are starting to lose the faith a little bit. I think some DFS ownership rates will tick up a little bit again this week because it's the Saints, but I don't think that's bad chalk this week with Christian McCaffrey.
Right. I think you're right. Carson's an interesting one because I feel like I've gotten a bunch of questions about him this week. He's one of the most popular players in the Twitter questions. And I'm going, and they're saying, hey, should I start? I'm going to look at the running back list. And I feel like I've been getting Chris Carson or with a lot of good or names like C.J. Anderson.
Come on, really? People are thinking about that with those two guys?
People are. And I think, like I said to you, I think Anderson's in a bit of a tough spot, but I think people are going a little too crazy about Carson after literally one good game. But I also think that if he goes, 9 carries for 14 yards this week, it's not necessarily an indictment of how he's going to do the rest of the season because I think Tennessee's like this lines up to be a pretty good spot for the Titans. So Carson, I wouldn't quit on Carson after this week either. But people are going, I'll look up all the Carson questions, but they've surprised me certainly.
Wow, I like Chris Carson enough, but I feel like he's one of those guys where if you lost a running back early this year, maybe you went 0 running back. You pick him up, you use him in those scenarios where you don't have a lot otherwise going on. I think I'm encouraged by the volume, and I can see him being the lead ball carrier with CJ Prosise being the passing down specialist. So it could work out really favorably for him. But there are still plenty of questions there, and that's why I'm so interested to watch and see how he does in another good test here. For other guys that I'm thinking about as far as interesting watches for this week, the Minnesota receivers would be there. Bradford were playing. We already mentioned he's out, so they didn't quite make the cut for me. Kenny Golladay kind of disappeared a little bit Monday night. Part of that was volume for Stafford being down. I want to see how he is utilized against an Atlanta defense that, probably has Marcus Trufant matching up, or Desmond Trufant rather, matching up against Tate and Marvin Jones a lot. And the safeties might be focused on Eric Ebron. So is this another good spot for Kenny Golladay with the Lions home against the Falcons?
All right. I'm going to give you 2 Twitter questions I got. One was, hold on. What do you think of a Diggs for Carson trade? That's high praise right there, right? That's high praise for Carson. I know, even because you think Bradford's coming, unless you think Bradford's done for the year, which means you know more than me.
I think it's that I don't know at all what's going on with Sam Bradford's knee, and I almost wonder if the Vikings don't even know. I mean, wasn't the line that there was too much scar tissue to see the ligaments? Isn't that what they told people?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound good, does it?
No, it sounds terrible.
He's had a lot of knee trouble throughout his career, too. So, I mean, the amount of scar tissue is not surprising. It's not a secret or anything like that. But, I think what that speaks to is some people just not having a lot at running back right now.
Right.
And I think it's actually a pretty fair trade.
Okay.
Because the uncertainty that you get because of Bradford's knee, it chips away at the upside that Diggs has. And Carson, with your pie in the sky sort of expectations, what is he, a top 15 running back if everything goes well?
If it goes well, yeah.
Yeah, so you're giving up a top 25-ish receiver for like a top 15 running back if everything's clicking. I mean, maybe that's underselling Diggs' ceiling a little bit, but keep in mind the one game Bradford played was against the Saints. So
right.
But everything looked amazing for the Vikings in that game.
Right. But the odds of Diggs' ceiling being reached are better than the odds of Carson's ceiling.
Absolutely. But it's kind of like in fantasy baseball season for the listeners out there who play both. If you had pitching, you were great. If you didn't have pitching and were trying to trade for it, it seemed like this year, more than any other year I've ever played, you had to overpay to get it. And I think that's kind of how running back is shaping up right now.
The other question, I'm trying to give you samples. Someone asking me, I need one running back: Gillislee, Carson, Cohen, McCaffrey. That's a good group.
That's a good group, and for me, Carson's just not even in consideration. It's Gillislee versus McCaffrey, right? Like it's those are the two. It's one of those two guys, and man, I think in that spot, if it's PPR, if it's full PPR, it's McCaffrey. If it's non-PPR, it's Gillislee. And if it's half PPR, I have no idea what I would do. That's one of the most difficult calls if you're splitting the difference. I think if I had to make that choice in a half-point PPR league, I think it's Gillislee over McCaffrey.
I think it is too. Because I think the odds of I think if you had to pick a running back to score a touchdown this week, Gillislee would be one of your top 10.
Right. I mean, of the snaps Jonathan Stewart plays, those could still happen in and around the stripe. Right. So inside the red zone. And, McCaffrey, he's a little bit dependent upon Cam getting some more touchback and being a little more comfortable this week, which, again, should happen because of the matchup. But physically, maybe he's not quite there yet. So it's a great problem to have if you're looking at Gillislee versus McCaffrey.
Yeah, that is a nice problem to have. All right, everybody, before we move on, I want to give you a quick reminder that you have a 9:30 game Sunday morning. You have Ravens Jags.
Yeah.
So if you're setting lineups, please don't forget that. And in a lot of your, let's say, DFS slates, I'm looking at DraftKings right now. The main slate on Sunday, Ravens Jags, is off the table. So much as I want to, there's one particular play I wanted to start in that game, and I can't. We'll talk about him later. But everybody, as you know, it's not too late to get closer to the game you love with DraftKings 1 Week Fantasy Football. This Sunday, DraftKings is hosting a $100,000 Pick'em contest, totally free to enter. Pick'em is the newest way to play 1 Week Fantasy Football. Drafting your team is faster than ever. I got to tell you, I played it last week for the first time, and it was terrific. DraftKings has organized players into 8 tiers. All you have to do is select one player from each tier. Choose between public contests with big cash prizes or private contests where you can compete against a group of your friends. DraftKings also has beginner and casual contests where you'll play against people of similar skill levels. And the best part is you get to draft a new team each week without any commitment. So get to DraftKings.com now and use the promo code WIRE to play in DraftKings free contest with $100,000 in total prizes this Sunday. That's promo code WIRE to compete for your share of $100,000 in total prizes. The contest is totally free to enter, so really, why wouldn't you check it out? DraftKings, the game inside the game. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details. You know who I'm eyeballing for DraftKings tournaments? Go ahead. Sorry, you're going to guess.
I was going to say, well, I was going to take a total shot in the dark at a player that you like. I'm going to say Devin Funchess.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. And he is one of the players. He's 4,200, which is not a bad price. He's another player I mentioned earlier in this podcast said I didn't like. I didn't like the real life version, but the fantasy version, I'm excited. Deshaun Watson.
Okay. Deshaun Watson. So I don't think I could do it.
4,700. He's got to run. If he runs for 50, there you go.
You need the rushing TD. Like if he gets the rushing score and like 30 or 40 yards on the ground and even just throws for like 120 or something, which he could do more than that if they're playing catch up, that makes value at that price point. Yeah. So I see the path. Then do you pair him with anybody? Do you go like completely off the rails and go Watson with like Lamar Miller and then just you like fade DeAndre Hopkins too, because the Patriots can often take away a top option?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. I don't know.
Or like Watson with like Ryan Griffin in the flex.
Yeah, that's nice. Is he active? What's the tight end situation for the Texans?
He's supposed to be back. Somebody else has to catch some passes behind DeAndre Hopkins. So yes. I'm actually in a 2 tight end league in the Stopa League. I'm playing Ryan Griffin this week because of the Tyler Eifert injury.
I love leagues like that. About. I love leagues where you have to play a guy like Ryan Griffin. They're so great.
Yeah, it was. Do I get Clive Walford, who's blocking more for the Raiders, or Ryan Griffin, who's coming off a concussion? Tough call.
Actually, I'm looking at this slate. Jacoby Brissett is 4,800. Which is not against the Browns. Yeah. And Kaiser's 5,000. There's some cheap quarterbacks that could actually put up some decent numbers.
And Brissett's at least at home.
Yep.
I mean, I think I'd feel a little better about your Watson call if he got the Patriots in Houston.
That's fair. Okay, that's fair. I actually think as a cash play, he might have. If he throws one touchdown, he might pay off. So
if he throws one and rushes for one, that's huge. That's what you're looking for. One of each.
Yes, huge. That's huge. That'll help you in any format. I agree. All right, going to the New York Football Giants, who, I mean, hopefully for everybody's sake, especially TV viewers, will play better on offense this week. If you have OBJ, he is not on the injury report. Are you ready and confident to roll with him in basically your average 12-team league?
Yeah, 12 teams. Even if you're starting 2 in a flex, I think you have to play him. I mean, the potential payoff is big. He made it through that game Monday night, seemingly unscathed. You have to think the target volume is going to go up a little bit, and that should be enough to play him. I'm worried about this matchup for the Giants offense, though, as a whole. I think the Eagles defense is good. I've been trying to really kind of pump up the Eagles as a whole. I mean, it was kind of surprising the Chiefs beat them the way they did in week 2, based on some of the reviews I saw from that game. I didn't get to watch that game from start to finish, but just the way the Eagles played generally is enough to win. So they could easily be 2-0 right now. They might be the best team in the NFC East. Yep. And I think their defense is pretty darn good. And the Giants' offensive line just looks so lost right now that they're going to have trouble, alleviating pressure from Eli Manning.
Heaney and I, two lifelong fans of rival NFC East teams, are all over the Eagles as NFC East champs. We talk about
You're just crowning them already?
Yeah, we got them. But both of us kind of agree that the Eagles are the scary team. So, yep, and I agree with that because the Giants, as bad as they've been, they haven't played good defenses yet. Unless you think unless the Lions are better than I'm giving them credit for.
They could be a little better than we all thought.
Yeah,
that's not out of the. I mean, I have.
We all thought they were terrible.
Yeah, I think the Lions are perpetually terrible because of my childhood and even some of the things that have happened in my early stages of adulthood.
Yeah,
and that's more about my development than the actual age that I am. Like I am more like a kid than I should be for my age. If that's
what does that mean?
I still watch a lot of animated shows, and I play Rocket League, so I just do stupid things that someone in their 30s shouldn't do.
Well, animated shows, but you're not watching little kid shows. You're watching Family Guy and The Simpsons or South Park and things like that.
Oh yeah, I mean I'm watching like The Simpsons and BoJack Horseman and stuff like that, but I don't know. That's probably not a mark of actual maturity.
Oh, no, I don't know anything about BoJack Horseman. I feel like I never heard of it until a month ago, and I have no idea what it is.
It's really dark. A lot of good talent voicing the characters, and I think it would be even funnier if you lived in LA at any point in your life. But I've never lived in LA. I think it's hilarious, even though it's dark. I can appreciate good dark humor.
And Rick and Morty, what's up with that? Do you watch that?
No, I kind of see. I saw this on Reddit. There's some kind of like Rick and Morty versus BoJack fans thing. I don't really know what that's about, so I'm gonna check out Rick and Morty.
All right. Yeah, I don't watch enough TV anymore. So that's how my wife. I don't watch enough TV. I need to watch more.
I'm definitely below the curve for the amount of TV I watch.
We actually joke around that when people do the what if you won the lottery, we say that we would spend 6 months watching TV to catch up on all the shows we've missed over the last 10 years, like The Wire.
Right, yeah. You'd do it, though. You'd probably buy a boat and then, like, float around somewhere on a boat in, like, the Pacific Ocean or something, or go out to Hawaii and do it out there. You'd watch it out there and, like, sit on the beach and watch the TV.
That would be fantastic. But, yeah, there's so much TV to catch up on. She just watched Ozark, by the way, and didn't like it as much as she wanted. I haven't seen it yet.
Still not on my radar. I think our buddy Vlad Sedler is a pretty big fan of Ozark.
Really? All right. I got to check. I think I might check it out. Although after my wife's negative review, I'm not sure I'm willing to invest the 8 to 10 hours that it would take me. So I don't know.
You could start with like an episode or two and just see if you get into it.
I know. And I think Silicon Valley's next. I think that's my next show that I need to binge because I haven't seen it enough. But we'll see. All right, back to football. Packers, some injuries last week, and we had Jordy get hurt, but it sounds like he's going to play. Cobb is doubtful. If Cobb is out, are you any? I know they're going to have to shift people around a little bit. Any interest in Geronimo?
Moderate in Geronimo. I think he's better suited to play on the outside. Cobb runs a lot of routes out of the slot. I wonder if we'd see more 2 tight end sets and Martellus Bennett coming off a game where he had a few drops. If he ends up being the guy that kind of peaks up a little bit in value, this could be a really nice high scoring game. The key though for the Packers is getting at least one of David Bakhtiari or Brian Bulaga back on the offensive line. Bulaga is questionable. Bakhtiari probably won't play. He's doubtful. The reason I think this game is going to be a shootout, though, is like both teams may have issues on the offensive line, but I'm not sure either team has the pass rush necessary to really do much about it. Nick Perry's not going to play in this one, most likely. He's also listed as doubtful. Jake Ryan, one of their linebackers for the Packers, is down. So they're really banged up. Devon House, one of their top corners, doubtful. None of those guys practiced all week. I'm surprised Nelson was able to come back and fully practice Wednesday. I think he was limited Thursday, and I'm not sure how much he did Friday. But after he left so early Sunday night, I figured it'd be a couple weeks before we saw him again.
Right, me too. All right, so teams that have to bounce back this week. We've talked about some of them already. Yes or no, Panthers?
Yes or no on what?
Will they bounce back this week? Will this be the week where you say, okay, my concerns about their offense are at least somewhat alleviated?
Yeah, the Saints cure all offensive woes, I think.
Right? Yeah, that's kind of what I think too. And we talked earlier about how Lattimore's not playing, you said? So
yeah, he's out.
Yeah, that's rough. That's brutal.
Isn't it, though, the kind of thing where if the Panthers play well, you're like, okay, well, they made a layup, but then you still have some doubts about them in week 4, don't you?
Right, and I think they go to New England next week. So, I mean, if they score 30 points, it'll be sort of they took care of business kind of thing. So, Seahawks, what happens there?
I don't think the offense is going to gel quickly. Jimmy Graham, very banged up right now.
Game time
the
decision,
running game,
by the way. For Jimmy.
Yeah, like that's not looking great. He could play and be limited, but I think the key for them is going to come out of their offensive line. I think offensive lines can take a half season sometimes to really start to figure it out. And even if they figure it out, it could still be a bottom 5 line. The key for them is just not being the worst line in the league by a huge margin. Like right. They could even maybe be the worst line as long as it's not by 3 standard deviations from the 31st best line. So I'm going to say no on the Seahawks. I think going on the road to Tennessee, tough enough spot where they're going to have some problems again.
Okay, so let's say this happens the way you think it will. And I think I agree with you. There will be anyone who owns a Seahawks fantasy player, and we're specifically talking, Graham might be different because he might not play. Specifically, Wilson and Baldwin. If they lose, let's say 20-10 at Tennessee, are you at a good buy low opportunity for Wilson and Baldwin?
Yeah, I would think that the owners in most leagues would be at the point where they're taking less than they paid, a decent amount less than they paid for those players. And the risky thing about it is just not knowing how long the lack of consistency around them might continue. Right. Because they're both good players. I like Wilson and Baldwin a lot. But there's only so much you can do when your quarterback is kind of running for his life on every play.
Right. We talked about the Giants already. And the Bengals, I don't know. At Green Bay, I don't know. We talked about some injuries. Do they have a shot? New offensive coordinator? Would it surprise you if they bounce back and looked like a competent offense this week?
It won't, because I like the personnel, so it would not surprise me if they bounce back. And again, those injuries for the Packers are enough where you take what could be a good defense when everybody's healthy and start taking that many players away, and suddenly they could leak like a sieve again. So, I think the Panthers and Bengals bounce back. Seahawks and Giants, not yet. How much when you watch the Giants, like, do you think their protection issues are fixable, and do you think their offensive line is significantly worse than it was last year, or is it pretty much the same?
I think it's pretty much the same, and I think they're gonna fix it somehow. I mean, I think a healthy Beckham helps to fix it, because when you get the ball out of your hand quickly, it depends on who you're throwing to, right? I mean, their offense was bad last year. It was really bad, and the way they scored way too often was Beckham sort of doing things by himself.
Yeah,
it's not like he scored. It's not like he scored 13 touchdowns on slants over the middle, but He makes plays. He's the only one there who can really make plays. And I think, it's the same guys, same pretty much everything. And I think it's somewhat fixable, but to a point where they're not the complete disaster that they are now. They're not going to be good, but they're not going to be this all year.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably fair at this point. I think with the Giants, I just want to find some way to feel better about Paul Perkins, and I can't do it. Like I bought him in the Stopa League as my second running back. Easily the worst money I think I spent in any of the auctions I did so far this year. Is he going to lose his job? Does it matter? I mean, even if he keeps it, like, is he still going to be so bad per carry and so sporadically used that he's not even a viable option to throw in?
He's probably not. Okay, you're right. You're after this, which we agree that this week's defense is tough. They're at Tampa, home for the Chargers, at Denver, home for the Seahawks, home for the Rams. There's not a lot of breathers in there.
No, that's part of the reason why the Giants offense, if you're worried about the slow start and you look at the upcoming schedule, it doesn't make you feel any better.
No, it really doesn't. I mean, I do keep thinking to myself, maybe they weren't as good as 11-5, but they're not 4-12 either, because it's literally the same people because they couldn't change anything. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. One other question about this. We talked about Graham. So tight end wise, Graham's game time decision. Jordan Reed says he's a game time decision. Tyler Eifert is out. Do you have any free agent tight end types for people who are still looking for him that you would like to recommend?
Yeah, if Ben Watson's out there, I think
yes.
his role looks pretty stable. I think it's going to be a lot of short intermediate passes again for the Ravens. Jags have a good enough defense to get some pressure. I don't think Flacco wants to throw it downfield much. So Watson at 5 or 6 targets seems like a pretty reasonable minimum expectation. Maybe he gets you a little bit more than that. You're looking for some alternatives, though, on the off chance that, Watson's already owned. Ebron's probably gone in those leagues. I don't think I'm throwing Austin Hooper out there if I can help it.
Yep.
I mentioned Ryan Griffin. That's
Ebron's
an ultimate dart.
76% owned, by the way.
Yeah. What do you do if Graham's out? Well, Vernon Davis is kind of a good built-in late replacement for the Reed owners. So if you're a Reed owner in particular, try to pick up Vernon Davis and just swap it out. I mean, over-under in that game's 55 right now.
Right. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what other guys you can look for. Evan Ingram, still reasonably available. Ed Dixon's not a horrible option.
If you had to play Ed Dixon, this is the week, right? Home for the Panthers against the Saints. I mean,
right.
That's if you're like in some kind of survivor league where you had to use every team's tight end at some week. I mean, this would be the Ed Dixon week.
This could be the Ed Dixon week. Again, I mean, 4 for 50 would be fine. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I don't think Ed Dixon's going to replicate Greg Olsen or anything. All right, everybody. So you probably won less than you thought. We talked about earlier, less than you thought last season at Daily Fantasy Football. You play against people with 100 entries in a pool, and it's it sounds like an interesting challenge, but it usually doesn't work out, and it's a losing proposition. But if you're tired of losing at Daily Fantasy Football, check out Let's Rumble in the Apple App Store. Let's Rumble, and that's Let's Rumble without an E at the end, matches you with players of the same skill level, giving you a fair chance every time. Play head-to-head for your best chance of winning, or group up to play multiple rivals for a bigger payout. Rank in the weekly leaderboards to win free cash prizes. You heard that right. Free cash prizes awarded every week. All you have to do is play the game, and you'll be entered in the leaderboard. Your highest score will determine your spot that week. Download Let's Rumble in the Apple App Store now. Get a free $5 bonus with your deposit. Let's Rumble in the Apple App Store. Thanks a lot, Let's Rumble. Okay. Who do you love? Who do you love this week? Can't wait. I mean, great, big week, huge, overachieves compared to where most other people think he'll finish.
Davante Adams is a guy that I liked a lot. I thought more highly of him when it looked like Nelson might be in danger of missing this game, but I like his price on pretty much all the DFS sites. I think this is a good spot for him to find the end zone here in week 3. So he's a guy I'm pretty high on. Kareem Hunt, everyone likes right now. From a DFS perspective, his price is not high enough. Like, he needs to be more expensive. I still love Kareem Hunt even as the price ticks up because it isn't fully caught up.
He's the second most expensive running back on DraftKings.
And it's still not expensive enough.
It's $8,000 though, which is low. Like some weeks, Le'Veon and David Johnson are 9,200 or something.
It just seems like even if he's still second, like it should be over 9,000 for Kareem Hunt right now on DraftKings because he's so involved as a pass catcher. He's so explosive, and I feel really good about the way the Chiefs keep using him. The other guy that's kind of like a mid-tier player, sort of more like Adams price-wise in DFS, that I feel pretty good about is actually Terrelle Pryor. I mean, he's 6,900 against the Raiders, 55 over-under, like I mentioned before. He's too big and too fast to continue slogging along with this low-end production. I mean, he had 11 targets in the opener against the Eagles, only 4 last week against the Rams. I think they're going to correct that mistake, and with the shootout potential of that game, Terrelle Pryor gets right in week 3.
I think that's a fun game, and I agree with you about him. I like that a lot. I actually like Amari Cooper on the board too. I think that game's going to be that's going to be one that's going to make me want to stay awake all night Sunday night to watch.
Do you think because we got the Thursday game that off the charts good, that the Sunday game with high expectations is going to fall flat on its face?
It could. The thing is, the Raiders, I mean, we've talked about this before. The Raiders offense is it's just so thoroughly good, you know? It is just, I mean, there's above average stuff everywhere. And the Redskins defense, not so good. But on the other hand, I like the Redskins offense. I like Kirk Cousins. You know, I mean, he's not the greatest real life quarterback, but he's good enough. And I like the fact that he throws a pretty good amount. And I think Pryor, like you, I think Pryor steps up this week. I really do. So yeah, this is a nice one. I don't think it's gonna be that much of a letdown. I think it's not gonna be as good as last night, but it's gonna be pretty good. So I mean, like 30-27, kind of good. That's perfectly, like, I'm fine with that. 30-27 is good enough if that's what it ends up being. Yep. And Redskins win. So there. Okay. My flag's in the ground on that. Yep. Other guys this week for me, I like Stafford. I actually think the Lions win too. Over the Falcons at home. And I really Are you looking back at week 1 and wondering how the Bears kept that game that close? Well, I think the Bears are going to be that kind of team, even though they weren't last week. I think the Bears have parts that are good. They have parts that are terrible, and unfortunately one of them may be quarterback. But they have parts that are good. And I think, you know, the defensive front 7, right? And some of the offensive line, I think, might be good enough to keep them in games. They won't win a lot of them, but I don't think they're going to get blown out a ton either. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I could level with that. But yeah, I think that the other guy, let's see, we mentioned Cooper. Jack Doyle. I looked at Doyle on that tight end thing, but he was 81% ownership on Yahoo. I think. That guy, Brissett, threw to him a lot last week. A lot. What is he, 8 for 70-something? I don't have the number in front of me. He was 8 for 8 target-wise. So, you know, Dante Moncrief's been pretty quiet, so I think that bodes well for Doyle as well. It seems like he's got that rapport that he's building with Jacoby Brissett. AJ Green, too. I didn't mention him before. I mean, I've got some trade questions about him this week, and nothing I saw that people were getting offered for AJ Green was enough for me to say, yeah, go ahead. Like, trade this guy that you drafted in the first round who's played on bad teams before and still produced anyway. I think AJ Green is still really good. And you know, at Green Bay, the shootout potential of that game, we're going to see AJ Green bounce back. He'll be pretty chalky, I think, both in cash and in tournaments in DFS, but I think he'll actually pay. You know, the other thing I want to ask you, the last thing about that, we brought up the Bengals and the new offense coordinator before. Now, they're not going to overhaul everything in 10 days. But do you think, and I actually had this conversation with Tim on Thursday, do you think they look at this and just, after what's happened in the first 2 games and what they've seen before, do they look at this and just say, we just got to phase out Jeremy Hill? We can't do this anymore. It's pointless. I hope so, because at this point for Marvin Lewis, his job is now kind of hanging in the balance. Right. And if they want to keep screwing around and running 3 guys and basically using Mixon the least, like that, to me, that just hurts them. Mixon can do more than Jeremy Hill. I don't think that's any sort of secret. And I think with Bill Lazor, Lazor or Lazor, like I always Laser,
forget.
but I'm not sure. Yeah.
it's awesome if it's a laser. Well, either way, like this is one of the things a shakeup should do. It should completely clean up that backfield. And if that happens, Joe Mixon's a guy we might be getting excited about again in a week or two. It's weird because early in draft season, people loved him. As it kind of played out, his stock fell a little bit, and that's proven to be the right call. But I just wonder if this shakeup is kind of the jump start Joe Mixon needs for this season.
All right. What's your plans for the weekend? What are you doing?
This weekend, I believe I'm going to drink a lot of beer and watch football on Sunday. So I don't have any other commitments that are kind of vying for my time on Sunday afternoon. So that's good. Saturday, I got to work Saturday. So I'll be here. I'll be doing the XM show for those of you who have it. It's 1 to 3 Eastern, channel 87. So previewing the week again. I've only done it like twice today now and one more time on Saturday. But hey, it's fun, right? It's what we do.
Who's doing that with you?
John McKechnie is with me tomorrow. Got
it. So I don't think I've ever asked you this. Are you a beer snob like Heaney or not? I'm somewhat a beer snob.
I'm not like top level. I mean, like on the beer snob cheat sheet, like Eno Saris is the expert. Like he's Le'Veon Bell right now on our he's awesome. That's why he writes about beer professionally. He's great at it. So if you're ever at a gathering and Eno is there, you'll probably have some of the best beer you've ever had. If Tim or I are there, you'll probably have very good beer, and probably less interesting conversation than if Eno were there. But we try to drink good beer, and there's plenty of it in this area, especially. But I think it's kind of almost nationwide now. Like within each region, there's good beer somewhere that you can get your hands on.
Yeah, Charlotte actually has an interesting brewery scene that's popped up over the last 5 years. And so there's a lot of them. So, lots of, you go to the grocery store and you have options of, 10 locally brewed beers that you can buy, which is pretty cool. And speaking of Wisconsin, I actually grew very fond of the Leinenkugel's Summer Shandy this summer. It's really good. Yeah. I mean, lemony and, it's a little bit of, you want to make fun of me for it. That's fine. But as a summery beer, I wound up buying it probably a handful of times.
Yeah, see, I'm not going to make fun of anybody for the beer they drink. I will, refuse certain offers. Someone's like, here, have a Bud Light. I'll be like, no, I'm good. Thanks. I'll just go have some water because hydration is really important. But if you like shandy, if you like throwing fruit in your beer, if you like, a Rodler is also a shandy. But if you're the cola beer person, I read an article about that. People are doing like 50-50. It was actually an article, I think, on Eno's site. That's sort of a bigger thing in Europe right now where it's 50-50. It's usually like a brown ale. The author of the article tested a bunch of stuff, and I think Fat Tire came out as the best beer to go 50-50 with like Coca-Cola. I guess you could use Pepsi too if you got a strong preference. And it's called a cola beer. And apparently those are kind of like shandies where it's, I don't know, younger drinkers drink them in some cases.
Right.
Shandies are great on a hot day.
Yes.
But I only want one of them. I'll take a shandy over a John Daly because I don't want to pass out in the sun.
John Daly. See, I literally might, once I hit stop on the record button, I might be making myself a John Daly.
You could have one John Daly before the pod starts. I think one is the limit there.
Maybe I don't make them strong enough. I don't make them that strong, so I can go a few John Dalys in and still be okay.
How many shots do you put in your John Daly?
I'm not measuring. It's probably, is it a shot and a half?
So like a finger and a half. Then if you poured in the vodka first, and the measure to be somewhere after the first finger, but not quite as high as the second one.
Something like that. I'm gonna have to check that out. I'll send you a picture.
All right.
Because the John Dalys don't bother me that much, and maybe I just make them weak. But I don't know.
The last time I had a John Daly, it's been a while. They sell a version of them, and they're kind of like Slurpees at the pool at the Mirage. And it comes out in a souvenir-sized cup. So I think it's a 32-ounce cup. And it was probably 5 years ago.
It's got to be $25 to drink that.
I think they were $20 or $25 a piece. And the best, I had one, and one of those giant John Daly Slurpee bombs made me feel pretty awful.
Yeah.
Because it's just a ton of booze. You're in the 105-degree heat. And I was watching other people I was with drink 2 or 3 of them. Like they kind of got pulled in by an attractive poolside waitress. And look, hey, some people they're just not thinking. And they're just like, hey, yeah, bring me a third John Daly Slurpee. And then you see the look on their face after they start drinking. And they're like, yeah, this is not good anymore. Like one of these was enough. But yeah, I mean, it's good. It's actually good if you can have more than one. It means you're not overpouring on yourself. Like overpouring is bad with liquor. I'm not a big liquor guy. I'm definitely more of a beer guy.
I see. My problem is that as I've gotten older, I like things like pale ales, but they get too filling for me now, and I don't enjoy them as much. I like the taste, but after one, I just can't do it.
Is it the heaviness of the alcohol if you're drinking like a double IPA, or is it just beer, the nature of the beer with the carbonation?
It's more, but the thing is, I think it's partly both, but I wind up after the first, I don't have the same feeling after I drink a Blue Moon.
Okay. I was going to say the solution to your problem, possible solution, I should say.
Yeah.
This may not work at all. You'd want something like a Founders All Day IPA, right? Like the sessionable IPAs, as the folks call them, where they're like maybe under 5% alcohol.
Yeah,
they're meant for the festival. I'm going to be outside from noon to midnight today, and I need to drink a beer that won't kill me while I'm in the sun. Like that's, but I like IPAs. I want something with flavor. There you go, Founders All Day IPA.
All right, you've got that's a weekend project that you just gave me, so I appreciate that.
And I think that the Founders distribution is so good around the Midwest that if I go to like a Walgreens, they have it there because it's a Michigan beer, but Wisconsin, we actually have surprisingly good beer at the drugstore because why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't you? You're Wisconsin, exactly. I think I've seen Founders in the grocery store here, but I'm not sure. I'm going to check that out. I'll let you know, everybody, North Carolinians, if you can find Founders. All right. Anything else? We're good? We want to wrap it?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. One other thing, CJ Anderson, I think he's totally legit. I'm surprised he's not more expensive on the DFS sites, and he'll be chalky again, but more good chalk.
All right. And you're going to get everybody ready with, we got plenty of things at RotoWire.com, and you're going to get everybody ready with the SiriusXM show from 1 to 3 Eastern on Saturday. So everybody, please check that out. Listeners to the podcast, as always, free 10-day RotoWire trial, rotowire.com/pod. No credit card needed. You can check out nearly all the features on the site with that. Check it out, rotowire.com/pod. Rate this podcast, please, everybody. That would make my weekend really, really good. Thank you for listening to this edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Fanball. Our next episode is going to be coming Monday morning, where Derek and I are going to check in on all the Sunday action. So please come on back then. For Derek VanRiper, I'm John Halpin. Have a great weekend, and good luck in Week 3.